Hey everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. Today is a two-parter with two old friends of the show. First off, Jeanette Pierce from the City Insitute. We had a conversation up on Mackinac about all the work that they're doing on the ground to keep and attract people in Metro Detroit. Jeanette's known for being an encyclopedia of all knowledge of the city of Detroit, but her work is really reaching out to different cities. We talk a little bit about that and some of the things that we've learned and some of the things that really haven't changed over the years. Then Vittoria Katanski, she's the director of Connect 313 that's been making a lot of progress connecting people to the internet. That's digital divide is a real thing in Detroit, and they are working to bridge it. There is an upcoming Detroit Digital Inclusion Week starting October 2nd that we're going to preview. So let's just jump into both of those conversations. Longtime friend of the show, Jeanette Pierce, City Insitute. Welcome back to Daily Detroit. It's so good to check in with you.
Oh my God, so excited to be here.
Yeah. So I'm just going to be honest with you with all these conversations. I'm going to be honest with you because you and I have this context. A lot of this feels a little familiar. Am I wrong?
It is very deja vu-like, and feels like the same conversations and headlines keep coming up, and it's all around attraction, retention of talent. But we've been talking about this a very long time.
Well, I think you and I have seen some of this kind of. It's kind of like when you're like, the storm is coming, and they're like, there's no storm. The storm is coming, but it's sunny now. And then now, for some reason, all of a sudden there's, all these things happening. What is your kind of perspective on that?
Yeah, I mean, we've had these conversations, and one of the things that is, challenging is that I think when you're talking about government programs, then the government changes, the programs change. And that's something we were talking about. Like, what is the institutional knowledge around attraction, retention conversations, right? Like, way back, 2006, I launched a young professional, I think it was the first one actually, in the city at United Way called Leadership Next. In 2008, we're the very first young professional group to be brought up to Mackinac as the emerging leaders, right? And then after that, we were part of the BING, Building Innovative New Government, with the mayor's office, a young professional, committee to help move the city forward.
Government sure loves their algorithm.
Yes, yeah, that was a good one, right? BING, and it was good, and he was a great guy. He's a great guy. He's still around, but we don't
want to bury a former mayor on this show.
No, but there's just, and then to have literally the headline last week of being. We're not growing because we're not technically losing population, but we're not growing as fast as other states.
We're basically flat.
Right. And what are we going to do about it? And let's have all these new things. And actually, I'm excited to hear the governor's speech in a little bit to see what they're going to roll out on some things. But, we've been doing the work on the ground in Detroit for 18 years now, right? I've taken 150,000 people on attraction retention tours. That's really what they are, right? How do we get people to stay? The easiest way is to help them know and understand and appreciate what they have right here. And too often we don't make the value proposition for why they should stay or why they should come. We jump right to, we got to have jobs. And yes, you need jobs.
And yes, people need to be paid fairly. So if you can match the pay, then it's like, okay, what is my lifestyle going to be like? What is everything going to be like when I choose to either move here or stay here? And what are the benefits going to be for me?
And for a long time, in 2008, we were having these conversations around, it's not just the jobs. People are choosing the lifestyle they want to have, especially now with remote work. We just had two couples decide to move here from Oakland, California, because they're 100% remote and with no ties to Detroit, but they're like, I can buy a house, I can live near water, I can, that is a real possibility that we can tap into. But also, you got to keep the people here that actually have connections to Detroit and Michigan. And too often the people from a place don't really appreciate it because they're just like, I know it because I grew up there, without really experiencing what it could look like with new eyes.
Well, and it's so geographically big in so many ways. So it's like, you may know your town, but do you know one next to you? I was blown away by some listeners who were like, I live in Southfield, and I'll be honest, I've never been to downtown Royal Oak. And I'm like, what? But that's how people go, because you forget, this came home to me in a big way when I recently went to Brooklyn. Not that we should be Brooklyn, not that it's the same thing, but how dense it was, right? It's like half the size of Detroit, 5 times the population. And like, that's just a smaller area. Like, Metro Detroit is huge, like 10 counties.
I mean, in Metro New York would also be that way, right? Like,
Right,
I
right.
mean,
But
like,
there's
but
so many
yes, but people
things.
don't leave their neighborhoods,
Right.
I mean, and that's the same, in New York, or yes, their communities, which is why we're actually, just launching this sought after city program. It's really about helping cities attract and retain talent by making sure people understand and appreciate where they live and work, right? So we're going around the region, around the country. We've launched in Dearborn, so come out on Dearborn, downtown walking tours, East Dearborn and West Dearborn, sponsored by the DDA. There's so many great businesses there, and so many people maybe they go to the one place they know in Dearborn, right? Or if they go at all, if you're an East Sider, maybe you don't even get over there. We've also doing great stuff and doing tours in Pontiac and Berkeley. Like, I have to admit, I don't think I'd ever been to Berkeley. That was actually why I went there. There was like, come have lunch. And I was like, oh, when we start walking around, I'm like, this is awesome. This is a tour, right? And but also El Paso was like, please come help us. We want what you do. Like, we were in Detroit. You took us on a tour, and you made us want to move to Detroit. She's like, we need people in El Paso to appreciate and have that passion for their own community, and they don't, right? So, and as I work and talk with communities across the country, there's one thing that just keeps coming up, is that everybody kind of thinks their town is only full of challenges. And every town has challenges, but it also has the assets, and the assets get lost. They just start kind of grumbling like, oh, well, we don't have this, or we don't have that, or blah, 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 when instead of focusing on what they do have and what the value proposition actually is.
And what you can build off of it, and understand and embrace that uniqueness to say, oh, maybe I have a riverfront, maybe I have a mountain, maybe I have a hill, maybe I have a this or that, right? And embracing those things and saying, what can we do instead of what we don't have?
Yes. And you can also continue to improve and get better. Like, even, there was a tweet that Dave Coulter had. It was like, this is what I think we need to do to attract and retain talent. And it listed 8 things or something. And, great things, transit, more inclusivity, all this stuff. And we do need that. But you also have to work with what you have now and then get more people to stay so that you can move the needle on some of those larger issues, right? So this is the power of and. Look, that's the theme of the conference, right? And what are you doing now? What's our value proposition now? And I actually think sometimes people in government don't necessarily think we have a value proposition. Like, why would anybody want to move here? Because they don't know either, right? I mean, not just them, but like, again, we're so focused on the challenges that are real, absolutely. And why do people want to be here? And then there's amazing reasons for that.
And how can we set ourselves up to take advantage of the things that we have, to be able to grow upon those things for people? And that's the other thing. So it's also about, to me, and I'm sorry to jump around, but where people can see themselves make that change. Because maybe this is a little crazy of me, and it's maybe my little libertarian streak I have, but it's on people to make that change, right? The government can't do all of this.
Absolutely. And that's one of the value propositions, is that you can have an impact, make a difference. It's super cheesy, but it's super true, right? In smaller places like Detroit or Michigan, Grand Rapids, Flint, you can do something that's going to have an amazing impact on your community. And that is we need to be telling people that that's part of the story. I mean, that's what we have been doing, right? When people say, what is the value proposition for Detroit? And this goes to, a lot of our communities, but in Detroit, we have all the big city amenities. I don't care how many people are moving to Phoenix or Nashville. They're not there's no more Picassos to buy. Their museums, are not even Nashville's literally not even doing a collection, because why start trying to collect art in the 2000s, right? Like, they just are like, we're going to just do rotating exhibits and bring other people's art in, right? We have this old money Flint. I was in Flint last week. There's so many great, amazing assets there. And then there's the big assets, and then there's the people and the small businesses and the community that really is an asset, right? And it's both and. And that's why we obviously say Detroit is big enough to matter in the world and small enough where you can matter in it. That's our value proposition.
You mentioned your tours, and I've taken a number of tours in various ways over the years that you've put together, but you mentioned specifically walking tours. And I think that's something we should talk about a little bit, because I think when you walk through a community as opposed to drive right through it, you can see what's actually there. Like, when you're driving, especially if you're in the driver's seat, it's like you're just vroom. And honestly, any community looks like something you drive right by, because you got to do all those things. But the walking tour, to me, I feel like it would help, but maybe...
Absolutely. I mean, when we started doing this 18 years ago, right? So I moved downtown. I'm a native Detroiter, grew up on the east side, for those that aren't familiar. I moved downtown 20 years ago, like May of 2003. and started walking places. And I would get people, I'd say, come walk with me. What, walk? Well, I don't understand. What is that? Like in the Motor City, it was a very strange concept, but it makes all the difference. You are totally right. When you can, and then you can pop into that shop, that bar, that restaurant, you can look at, like you get a feel for the place. And then if you take that and add someone who has lived there forever and can give you all the inside information, then it's even more powerful, which is what happened to me in Berkeley. Literally never stepped foot there, and then was like just blown away walking around with a longtime resident and popping in. And then also he was like, oh yeah, I know this thing and that thing. Then he's like, wait, this is a new store. And so we like popped into a new place, right? And he got to be, right? So there's always more to learn. And a lot of times people don't realize that or think their story's worth telling, or that their place doesn't have a story. Every place has a story, and every place can do a better job of telling that, especially to its own residents, right? And that's where attraction retention comes in. But like, people are like, oh, it's just that bakery that's been there 100 years. No. Like, that's a really important part of why somebody would want to be in your community, right?
It's part of the mosaic. It's part of the tapestry. It's part of what makes it special. I can think right now of listeners that are in Berkeley going, yes, somebody's talking about me, right? Because they absolutely love their community, and they send me emails like, oh, here's a new thing or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm really glad to get them. And I like to see that pride in those areas, because at the end of the day, we all have Detroit pride, but like, we are one region, like economically, socially. Like, if you think about our families, how many of us have families? I think of almost no one who has families only in one city, right? I've got family on the west side, I got lots of family on the east side, Grosse Pointe Park, St. Clair Shores, Sterling High, all these things, right? You can't say like if we go ahead and spend life as just, oh, we're so individual and so different, when we're all needing each other.
Absolutely. And I mean, part of what we get into on our Detroit in Context tours, the deeper dive stuff, is that, we have 131 municipalities in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County.
So many.
And almost half of them are under 5 square miles. So that actually has been a drag on our region historically. But the thinking of it regionally, and so we're working with like Sterling Heights. There's some amazing, great small businesses there.
Some great parks.
They've invested heavily in their parks. Their library has a 3D printer that people can use, and free bike rentals. I'm going to be doing walking tours of Sterling Heights this summer. I mean, can you, like, you wouldn't even think that was...
you as long as I have, I never thought that would be the day.
Right. I mean, because every place has a story. We've been talking with Port Huron and Monroe, and it's been so awesome for me because I love learning. And so I started all of this because I didn't know at one point. I found something out and went, oh my gosh, that's really interesting. Maybe other people would find that interesting. And so I've done that in Detroit for so long, and now it's so fun to be going to all these other cities and working with them to help them tell their story, to help attract and retain talent. And you know what? Every city, every community is going to have universities or colleges or community colleges or hospitals, and all of those places need to attract and retain talent through those entities, right? So it's like, are you taking, he just posted this list of these 8 innovative ways to attract and retain talent. Things like, yes, take your college students on a tour of the small businesses around them. In Flint, they were talking about, they did a survey for the college students on what they wish they had around. And people were like, oh, I wish we had a coffee shop. I wish we had a wine bar. And the city's like, we have a coffee shop. We have a wine. We have more than one coffee shop. We have wine, but they just don't leave campus, right? So if you can just inform and engage students, get them out and show them what's possible, it's a huge impact. And then it supports small businesses, creates community, all of that jazz. And on the hospital side, so often they all just go to the hospital and leave the hospital. But there's a huge population bases that need to want to stay here, and the only way they're going to do that is if they know the assets in the community.
It's igniting that joy of exploration a little bit, even within your own place. I see so many people travel like, I wish I had this thing. Oh, by the way, you have this over here, right?
Yes.
When they go somewhere else on vacation, it's like, we could or do have a lot of these things here. And in my head, you were talking about like 130 some municipalities. I'm like, it's almost like we need like Pokemon cards to catch them all.
Yes,
right.
The checklist. That's one of our tools that we've used for a long time. The checklist of all the bars and restaurants, because people go, oh, I've been everywhere, and just this power of like sliding a piece of paper where they have to like check off where they've been, and they realize, oh, maybe I haven't been everywhere, and that seed is planted to maybe I should go to a new place.
Or it gets competitive. I've seen that too.
Yeah, we make it into a social media thing, and people are posting photos. The first time we did it as a 90-day challenge, the winner went to 210 places in 90 days. native Detroiter, got on Instagram just to do it years ago, and it was the best thing. She would like have a cookie at one place, and then a salad, and then a cookie, and then a coffee, like at lunch, and that'd be 3 different places.
Okay, that's dedication.
Yes,
I
it was
am.
really great.
I am impressed. Well, Jeanette, how can people find out more and help what you're doing?
Yeah, so the cityinstitute.com. If you have a community in here in Metro Detroit, across the country, the world even, we're working with Windsor. If you haven't been, we got to do a whole thing on that. Windsor tours are coming too. Let us know if we can help you tell that story and get more people knowing and loving where they live and work. And the last thing I'll say is that you mentioned that part about people don't really realize that they go to another place and then see something they want. But one of the big parts is, how do you know what you need unless you know what you have? And that's what it's all about, getting people to know what they have and then build what you need together.
Joining me on the line is Vittoria Katanski, a longtime friend of the show. She is the director of Connect 313. Vittoria, welcome back to Daily Detroit. It's always good to talk to you.
Awesome. Thanks. It's great to talk to you too.
So Connect 313 that you're involved with here, it's an organization that I have heard of, know a little bit about, but you know what? I would be doing a disservice if I overset it up. Why don't you tell us so people know what Connect 313 is and really the work that you're trying to do in the community?
Absolutely. So Connect 313 is a public-private partnership between the City of Detroit, Rocket, and United Way. And the intention is to bring nonprofits, for-profits, and the city together to come up with a solution to impact the digital divide among Detroiters and work together to get more Detroiters connected to the internet.
Now, I've heard different stats about this digital divide. Why don't you share some of it as you see it? Because, some of the numbers I might have in my head are maybe a couple or a few years old.
Detroit is actually leading the country in ACP signups, which is an affordable internet plan, and which is really amazing. And we have been able to work to get almost 70% of those eligible connected to that plan. But the divide is still something that's really real. It's not just connections to the internet or having devices. It's about how to use them and how to use them for your daily life. So much has changed in very quickly. Definitely before the pandemic, things were already like this. But I think since the pandemic, it really highlighted how disconnected people were from work, healthcare, paying their bills, and all of those things. So Connect 313 is trying to kind of bring people together and be able to just connect to the things that they need for daily living.
And I think bridging this gap is crucial because especially if you're listening to this in a community that is middle class or upper middle class or something like that, you just kind of take for granted whether it's Wi-Fi, whether it's certain things. But if you're not able to participate in that system, there is a bunch of stuff that you're just not going to have access to. It's going to be, frankly, a much different life experience for you without regular internet, without the skills for those things and such.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Detroit's all their bill pay now is online. So the way we pay taxes is different. The way if you want to even purchase a house is different. All of the things that I think a lot of people just take for granted. And quite frankly, I think people are like, oh, well, it's not that, if you can't afford it, it's not that necessary, but it's become like necessary just for living. We apply for jobs with the internet. We do our work through having the internet. We do our healthcare with telehealth and things like that. I mean, having access is the difference between having a healthy, connected life and kind of being left out of the entire conversation.
Now, upcoming next week, October 2nd through 6th, with a number of panels on the 2nd, is the Detroit Digital Inclusion Week. And I'm glad that you're bringing people together around this. Really, what is the focus of Detroit Digital Inclusion Week that's going to be at Wayne State's McGregor Memorial Conference Center?
So it's an entire week of outreach to kind of get this topic into communities and talk through with different people. At McGregor, it's on Monday. We'll have 4 panels that will have different aspects of talking about, digital access and the divide, ranging from policies, where we have the state of Michigan, city of Detroit, different policy and researchers involved, to just general health around internet use, to stretch your back, and when is the right time for a child to be introduced to a device, how to keep elders safe from, people on the internet that take advantage of them while they're connected. So it's a big range of things at McGregor, and that will be on October 2nd. After that, we have a variety of community events that either are hosted by Connect 313 or some of our community partners are doing on their own. And the intent is for people throughout the city to feel comfortable coming in and learning about the digital divide and just STEM programs and things like that.
So this is an event that's free and open to the public, right?
It is. We have registration for the Monday event, but everything else on our website, it's come as you will. Our website is connect313.org, and you can still register for the Monday events then. And there are walk-in opportunities. You don't have to stay for the entire day. If there's a panel that you're interested in, you're free to just come to that panel, or, if there is the opportunity to register for the whole day, that's another option.
As always, feedback 313-789-3211 or dailydetroit@gmail.com. Always looking to hear from you. Thank you to our members, patreon.com/dailydetroit, who help fund this thing. Your support is crucial. With that, I am Jer Stays. We will be back tomorrow with Norris Howard talking about all the things. Remember that you are somebody. We'll see you around Detroit.